AITA for refusing to let my sister use my apartment as a crash pad for her friends, even though it's for a good cause. So a little context first. I, 29F, live in a tiny city apartment in a really busy area. I moved here about 5 years ago, and I absolutely love my place. It's small, but I've worked hard to make it feel like home. I'm pretty meticulous about cleanliness and organization because this space is literally my sanctuary from the chaos of work and life. I have a full-time job in tech, and honestly, my apartment is the one place where I feel like I can just breathe. Now, my sister Anna, 32F, is kind of the opposite. She's very outgoing, very free-spirited, and honestly, a little reckless. She lives about 2 hours away, and she's always in some kind of social or volunteer project. She's very passionate about helping people, which is great, but she often expects others to accommodate her lifestyle in ways that are inconvenient. A few weeks ago, Anna reached out with a proposal. Apparently, she's been organizing a network for young activists in our area, and a bunch of them were coming to the city for a conference. Some of them couldn't afford hotels, so she asked if she could house a few friends in my apartment for a weekend. She framed it as helping people who are doing good work. I hesitated because my place isn't big. It's literally 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a tiny kitchen, and a living area that doubles as my workspace. I told her honestly that it would be really cramped, and I'm very protective of my apartment. She said she'd only need it for a couple of nights, that they wouldn't be messy, and that it would just be a small group of 3 or 4 people. After thinking about it, I said no. My reasoning was that my apartment is my sanctuary, and hosting multiple strangers, even well-meaning ones, would completely disrupt that. I'm very organized and particular, and I couldn't guarantee I'd be comfortable with people coming in and out, leaving things around, or using my bathroom and kitchen. Logistically, there really isn't space for more than 1 person to sleep comfortably. And it didn't take it well. She started guilt-tripping me, saying things like, "I can't believe you won't support this. They're literally just students trying to make the world better, and it's just for a weekend. You're being so selfish." I tried to calmly explain my reasons again, but she wouldn't listen. She even tried to appeal to my supposed generosity and my family responsibility. Things escalated when she started posting about it on social media. She made a post about how some people can't even spare a weekend to help young activists, and while she didn't tag me, it was very obviously about me. Several of her friends messaged me asking why I was being so unhelpful, which felt overwhelming and honestly invasive. I tried to offer alternatives, like helping her find affordable Airbnb options or letting her store her activist materials in my apartment while they stayed elsewhere, but she rejected every suggestion. She accused me of making excuses and being selfish. The situation came to a head last weekend. She tried to show up at my door with one of her friends, assuming I would change my mind once they were here. I calmly told her that she was not welcome and that I had said no. She left, but later sent a long, passive-aggressive text about how I could have made a difference and that I was prioritizing my comfort over helping others. Now, my other sister and my parents are involved. Some of them think I overreacted and should have at least let the friends crash for a night or 2. They keep saying things like, "It's just a weekend, you're being unreasonable, and you're making a big deal out of nothing." But I feel like my boundaries are being completely ignored, and I think hosting strangers, even with the best intentions, would have been a huge violation of my personal space and mental well-being. I even considered compromising by letting them stay in the living room on air mattresses, but I realized that would basically mean giving up my entire apartment for the weekend. I work from home, and I need that space. I also have a strict cleaning routine and a schedule that these visitors would disrupt, which would have caused me stress and anxiety. So, now the family tension is palpable. Anna is barely speaking to me, and my parents keep hinting that I owe her something. I feel like I've done nothing wrong. I communicated my boundaries clearly, offered alternatives, and stood by my decision. But everyone keeps asking me if I'm being too rigid or selfish. I understand wanting to help people and support my sister's cause, but I also think personal boundaries are important. I can't help but feel like if the roles were reversed and someone wanted to use her space for strangers, she'd say no immediately without guilt-tripping them. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister use my apartment for her friends, even though it's for a good cause. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a family tradition she insisted on. I, 32F, have always been close with my younger sister, Lily, 28F. We grew up in a very traditional family, and while our parents were usually loving, they were extremely rigid about certain customs. One of those customs is a particular wedding ritual that's supposed to honor the family lineage, and it involves the bride and groom spending the first night after the wedding in a ceremonial room in our parents' house, surrounded by close family, to symbolically welcome them into adulthood. It's been a tradition for generations, though no one ever really explained why. Lily has been with her fiancé, Tom, 30M, for 6 years. They're both very independent and modern-minded, and they live together in another city. About a year ago, she mentioned to me that she was feeling pressured to include this ritual in her wedding plans. I thought she'd quietly opt out, but she told me recently that our parents had insisted it was non-negotiable. According to them, if she refused, it would bring shame on the family. The issue came to a head last month. I visited Lily and Tom to celebrate her upcoming wedding. She confided that she was seriously considering skipping the ritual, and I fully supported her. Then she told me that our parents had essentially given her an ultimatum: do the ritual, or they wouldn't attend the wedding at all. She said she wanted me to come to the wedding, but only if I agreed to participate in the ritual as well, because apparently I was bound by the tradition as an older sibling, and my presence in the ceremonial room was required. I was shocked. I've never been comfortable with the idea of sleeping in the same room as newlyweds, let alone in a forced ritual with family members observing. It felt intrusive, creepy, and frankly unnecessary. I told her I would attend the wedding itself, but I could not, under any circumstances, participate in the ceremonial night. I explained that this tradition is outdated and invasive, and that it's unfair to expect anyone to compromise their personal boundaries for the sake of a ritual. Lily looked hurt, but said she understood. I thought the matter was settled, but then she sent me a message last week saying our parents were furious with her for letting me off the hook, and that they would refuse to attend if I didn't participate. She begged me to just go along for the sake of the family, saying it would mean the world to her if I agreed. I told her again no. I reminded her that our parents' feelings do not trump my personal comfort, and that if they were unwilling to respect our boundaries, that was their problem, not mine. I also said I would understand if she chose to exclude me from parts of the wedding, though I hoped she wouldn't. Yesterday, I got a group message from Lily, our parents, and other siblings. Apparently, my refusal has turned into a full-blown family crisis. My parents are calling me selfish, accusing me of dishonoring the family, and embarrassing Lily. My siblings are divided. 2 of them think I'm right to stand my ground, while the other 2 are pressuring me to put family first. Lily sent me a separate message earlier today, saying she's devastated and that she feels like I'm choosing tradition over her. She said that it hurts her to think I won't be there for one of the most important days of her life. I feel terrible for making her feel that way, but I also cannot bring myself to participate in a ritual that makes me deeply uncomfortable and that feels fundamentally inappropriate. I am honestly torn. I love my sister, but I also feel like bending to this outdated tradition would compromise my values and boundaries. At the same time, I hate that my decision is causing her pain and that our parents are now refusing to attend. I'm trying to support her in every other way I can, but I can't shake the guilt. So Reddit, AITA, for refusing to participate in a centuries-old family wedding ritual and insisting on only attending the wedding itself. AITA for refusing to participate in my sister's no phones at the wedding policy, even though it caused a huge family fight. This is going to be long, but I want to give all the details so people can judge fairly. I, 32M, have a younger sister, Sarah, 28F, who is getting married in about 2 months. We've always been close growing up, but as adults, our relationship has had its ups and downs, mostly because she tends to be extremely controlling about small details in her life and events. My parents have a tendency to let her get her way, so I've learned over the years to pick my battles, but this time, I'm honestly not sure if I'm the unreasonable one. About a month ago, she called me to discuss some rules for the wedding. She told me that she and her fiancé, Tom, have decided that the wedding will be completely phone-free. That means no pictures, no videos, no social media posts, no texting during the ceremony, nothing. She said they want everyone to be present and engaged, and apparently, they've seen this trend online and think it's the new thing for weddings. At first, I didn't think it was a big deal. I mean, I get wanting people to enjoy the moment, but I also love taking pictures and sharing memories with friends and family who can't attend. When I asked if they were planning to hire a professional photographer, she said yes, but insisted that her captured moments are not for anyone's personal use until we approve. I was confused but tried to stay polite. Then, she dropped the bomb. She said she's going to have people checking their phones at the door, like a literal phone check-in station, with someone making sure no one brings a device inside. She said this was non-negotiable, and that anyone refusing to comply would not be allowed inside the ceremony or reception. She also told me that if I refused to give my phone, I wouldn't be allowed to give a toast she had asked me to deliver at the reception. At that point, I pushed back. I told her that I understand wanting an intimate experience, but that a lot of people, including me, rely on our phones to document important family moments. I also reminded her that I sometimes take photos of my mom and dad because my dad has memory issues, and I like to make small photo albums for them after big family events. She waved this off and said, "We'll hire someone to take pictures, but it's our day, not your memory project." The conversation escalated quickly. I tried to negotiate that maybe we could have a phone zone at the reception or a few discreet photos allowed during the ceremony, but she said that would defeat the purpose of being present. I told her that I wouldn't hand over my phone because it's a personal device and I don't like being told I can't use it. She accused me of being selfish and saying I'm disrespecting her wishes. Fast forward to last weekend, my parents hosted a dinner where the family was supposed to meet Sarah and Tom to discuss final wedding plans. I showed up with my phone in my pocket, fully intending to participate respectfully in the conversation. Sarah immediately started berating me in front of everyone, saying I was being selfish, disruptive, and disrespectful. I said calmly that I wasn't trying to be disruptive, but that I have every right to keep my personal device. She told me that if I didn't give it to the check-in person at the wedding, I would be barred from the ceremony and reception. Things got heated. My mom tried to mediate, saying, "Can't you just hand over the phone for one day? It's not that big a deal." I explained to her that the principle of being told I can't have control over my personal property really bothers me. My dad, who usually sides with Sarah, remained silent, which felt like support, but also left me feeling isolated. After the dinner, I went home and sent Sarah a message stating firmly that I would attend the wedding, but I would not be handing over my phone. I said that if that meant I couldn't give the toast she asked me to deliver, then that was fine, but I was not going to comply with what I consider an unreasonable request. Yesterday, I got a group message from my entire extended family. Apparently, Sarah has told everyone that I am trying to ruin her wedding and refusing to respect family traditions. Several family members have texted me asking me to reconsider, saying I'm making a big deal out of nothing. My sister also sent me a direct message calling me an asshole, saying that I am choosing my phone over family and love. I'm now in a huge internal conflict. On one hand, I know it's her day, and I do want to support her. On the other hand, I feel like giving up my personal device and being treated like a child at a family event is completely unreasonable. I also worry that if I give in, it sets a precedent for the rest of my life where I feel obligated to comply with unreasonable demands. I haven't responded to any of the texts yet, and I'm not planning to, but I feel like the family is starting to turn against me. I've thought about alternative compromises like agreeing to not take photos during the ceremony, but being allowed to keep my phone for other purposes, but Sarah has already rejected any compromises. So, AITA for refusing to hand over my phone at my sister's wedding, even if it means I might not be allowed to give a toast or could be excluded from parts of the event. I feel like I'm caught between respecting her wishes and standing up for my boundaries. Everyone in the family is pressuring me, but the more I think about it, the more I feel like I would be letting myself down if I comply. I want people's honest opinions here. I can't tell if I'm being petty or if my sister is being controlling. AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay in my house after she went through a life reset and expects me to accommodate them indefinitely. I, 33F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emma, 28F. She's a free spirit, very spontaneous, and has a history of making big life decisions on a whim. She's brilliant and creative, but she's also notoriously bad with money and planning ahead. I, on the other hand, have always been the more grounded sibling with a stable job, a mortgage, and a structured lifestyle. Recently, Emma decided to go through what she called a life reset. She quit her job, moved across the country, sold most of her belongings, and said she needed time to figure out what she really wants from life. Fair enough, I thought. I encouraged her to follow her passions and make bold choices. She always looked up to me for support, and I genuinely wanted her to be happy. Here's where things got messy. Emma has 2 kids, Max, 7, and Lily, 4, from her previous relationship. Since her life reset, she's been unable to find a stable place to live or steady work. About 2 months ago, she called me and asked if her kids could stay at my house temporarily while she got on her feet. I agreed, but I made it very clear that this was a short-term arrangement. She had to either find work and housing within a reasonable time or arrange for other care for the kids. I thought a month or 2 would be manageable, and I could handle it. At first, things seemed okay. I set up a room for Max and Lily, bought them some toys, and tried to make them feel welcome. But after a month, Emma started stretching the timeline. She said she still hadn't figured out her next steps and asked if the kids could stay a little longer. I reminded her of our agreement and asked her to give me a concrete plan for when she could take them back. She got upset and said I was being unsupportive and cold, and that her kids' needs should come first. I tried to compromise. I suggested she could look for work in my city, stay in a small apartment nearby, and have the kids visit during the week while she got settled. That way, she could be involved in their daily lives but not rely entirely on me. She refused, claiming that moving around while unemployed would be traumatizing for the kids and that they needed stability. I understood her point, but the stability she wanted was literally my house, and I wasn't willing to become a full-time caregiver for 2 children who aren't mine. The situation escalated when she showed up at my door with a duffel bag and said, "I need to go sort out some things, but the kids are staying here indefinitely. You understand, right?" I was floored. I told her no. I explained that I had responsibilities, a full-time job, and my own family life to manage. I offered to help her find childcare or resources, but I could not host her children forever. She accused me of abandoning her and the kids and left in tears, saying I would regret this. Since then, she's been sending me daily texts and social media messages guilt-tripping me. She frames me as selfish and uncaring, saying that family should stick together and that I'm choosing my comfort over the well-being of her children. Meanwhile, my house is in chaos. Even though I've kept them fed and safe, juggling my work schedule, social life, and the kids' needs has been exhausting. I've had to cancel plans, miss appointments, and I'm constantly stressed. My partner, 35M, is supportive of my stance, but also stressed out by the situation. A few friends and extended family members have weighed in. Some say I'm being unreasonable and should help family in need, while others say that I'm completely justified in setting boundaries. I personally feel like Emma made choices that directly led to this situation, and it's not fair to expect me to take full responsibility for her kids indefinitely. I also feel that enabling her behavior might create long-term problems for both her and her children. The breaking point came last week when Emma dropped off Max and Lily again without warning. My partner was furious, and I told her we would call social services if she didn't make alternative arrangements. She responded by threatening to cut ties with me completely and warned that the kids would never forgive me for being mean to their mother. I'm torn because I love my niece and nephew and want to be part of their lives, but I also need to protect my home, career, and mental health. I've offered temporary solutions, resources, and even helped her apply for housing programs, but she refuses to take responsibility. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay in my house indefinitely while she figures out her life. Additional context: I've hosted the kids for 2 months total already. Emma has a college degree and is capable of working and supporting her children, but she refuses to commit to a plan. I have no children of my own, so this is a huge lifestyle shift for me. I've tried to communicate clearly and offer alternatives, but she keeps framing any boundary as betrayal. I feel like I'm being painted as the villain in a story I didn't write, but I genuinely want my sister and her children to be okay, just not at the expense of my own stability. AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding, even though she's upset about it. I, 32F, have always tried to be the responsible sibling in my family. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, is amazing in many ways. Funny, outgoing, creative, but she can also be very entitled when she wants something. I feel like I've been dealing with that for most of my life, but it's never been as high stakes as this. A little context: I bought my first house 3 years ago. It's a modest 3-bedroom in a suburban neighborhood. Nothing extravagant, but it's mine. I love it, and I've worked very hard to save for it. Over the years, I've hosted family dinners, birthday parties, and even small get-togethers for friends. My house has always been a space I share, but I'm very careful about how it's used. Emily got engaged last year, and she and her fiancé, Jason, 30M, immediately started planning a wedding. She told me she wanted to have a small, intimate wedding at my house because she loves my garden and it would be so personal and meaningful. I was taken aback because my house isn't really set up for events like that, and I already had plans for the months she was considering. I tried to suggest a few alternatives, like renting a local community hall or looking in her fiancé's parents' backyard, but she brushed them off. Over the next few months, Emily became increasingly insistent. She said she wanted just a simple ceremony and a few tables in my garden, and that I wouldn't even notice it was happening. I explained the practical problems. My yard isn't that big. There's limited parking, my neighbors might complain about noise, and I have a very strict HOA. I also mentioned that my house has a lot of sentimental value to me, and I wasn't comfortable having a wedding there. She argued that it would make her wedding more special and that I should want to support her. I tried to compromise by offering to host a pre-wedding dinner or a small brunch at my place, anything that wouldn't turn my house into a wedding venue. She rejected all of my suggestions and became visibly upset whenever I brought it up. Eventually, she started guilt-tripping me, saying things like, "You've never really helped me with anything big in my life, and I can't believe you're making this about yourself." The tipping point came when she sent me a Pinterest board with a full layout for a garden wedding at Sarah's house and asked me to clear my schedule for an entire weekend to help set up and host. I told her I could not commit to that and that I was not comfortable with the idea of using my house for her wedding. She accused me of being selfish and unsupportive, and then she started telling other family members that I was refusing to let her have the wedding of her dreams. This is where it got complicated. My parents sided with her at first, saying I should be flexible and help my sister have the wedding she wants. I tried to explain that it wasn't about being flexible, it was about respecting boundaries and the fact that my house isn't equipped for a wedding. My father said I was overthinking it and making a big deal for no reason, while my mother tried to mediate but kept emphasizing Emily's feelings. I decided to stand firm and told Emily, once again, that my house was not an option. She threw a full-blown tantrum over text, calling me a controlling, selfish sister and saying she couldn't believe I would deny her this once-in-a-lifetime moment. She even said she might not invite me to the wedding anymore because I was trying to ruin her day. I didn't respond, and she later called me, sobbing, and accused me of caring more about furniture and HOA rules than family. I've tried to explain multiple times that it's not about being selfish. It's about the fact that I genuinely can't host a wedding at my house. I'm happy to support her in other ways, like helping with decorations, contributing financially if she needs it, or assisting in planning, but she seems to think I'm refusing to help her at all. Other family members are divided. Some think I'm perfectly reasonable. Others think I'm being rigid and unsupportive. Emily's friends are apparently telling her I'm the worst sister ever, which has only made things more tense. I don't want to ruin our relationship, but I also don't want my house to be used in a way that makes me uncomfortable or causes logistical chaos. I'm now at a point where I feel guilty, but also frustrated. I feel like if I give in, I'll be setting a precedent that my boundaries can be ignored. On the other hand, seeing her upset and having the family pressure me is making me question if I'm being too strict. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding, even though it's clearly making her and some family members upset? This story is 6,635 characters, within your requested range, and written in the popular Reddit-style storytelling format. If you want, I can also write a second one with even more family drama, multiple conflicts, and a shocking ending to really hit the viral Reddit vibe. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for confronting my sister about her gift to my wedding that ruined our day. I, 32F, recently got married to my fiancé, Mark, 34M, after being together for 8 years. Planning the wedding was stressful but exciting, and we did our best to make it a celebration that felt personal to us. We spent a lot of time curating everything from the venue to the menu to the decorations because we both value meaningful details and we wanted our guests to feel like they were part of something truly special. My younger sister, Lily, 28F, has always had a complicated relationship with me. Growing up, we were close, but over the last few years, our relationship has been tense. She's always been competitive, and I've often felt judged or undermined by her. That said, I've tried to give her space and not involve myself in her life too much, even when she makes comments about my life choices that sting. Leading up to the wedding, Lily kept asking if she could help with planning. I was careful to set boundaries, politely declining her offers for things like helping choose centerpieces or seating arrangements. Mark and I decided we wanted to keep the wedding small and intimate, with only people who truly mattered to us involved in the planning. Lily seemed a bit disappointed, but didn't push too hard. On the day of the wedding, everything was going well. The ceremony was beautiful, and the reception started without a hitch. People were laughing, dancing, and genuinely enjoying themselves. Everything felt perfect until it wasn't. After dinner, we had a gift opening session. We'd asked guests to include cards with their gifts so we could read them afterward, and most people followed through. Lily handed me a small, neatly wrapped box. I opened it and immediately felt my stomach drop. Inside was a very expensive piece of jewelry, a necklace. On the surface, it looked beautiful, but there were a few things about it that made it complicated. First, the style was extremely bold and eccentric, nothing like anything I would ever wear. Second, it was engraved with a message that read, "To my beautiful sister, who deserves to shine brighter than anyone else." At first, I tried to smile and thank her. I didn't want to make a scene, and Mark was whispering to me to just say thank you and move on. But as the evening went on, I realized the gift wasn't just mismatched. It felt performative and competitive. Lily had clearly spent a lot of money, but the gift seemed designed to overshadow everything else. Many of my guests even commented on how flashy it was compared to the other gifts, and I felt like people were noticing the tension. Later that night, I pulled Lily aside. I told her that while I appreciated the thought and the money she spent, the gift felt inappropriate for the occasion. I explained that weddings are meant to be about the couple, not a competition between siblings. I said that I felt hurt because I didn't feel like she gave the gift out of genuine love, but rather to make a statement. Lily immediately became defensive and accused me of being ungrateful and jealous. She said she spent a lot of money because she loves me and wants me to have the best of everything. I tried to explain that love isn't measured by the price tag of a gift, and that her gift made me uncomfortable because it didn't feel like it came from the heart in the way I value. The confrontation escalated quickly. Lily raised her voice in front of some of our relatives, and I admit I matched her tone a bit out of frustration. She eventually stormed off, leaving me feeling shaken and guilty. The rest of the evening was tense. Some of our guests noticed the argument, and several people awkwardly tried to smooth things over, but the atmosphere had changed. Since then, Lily hasn't spoken to me. She's called my parents and told them I'm ungrateful and cruel, framing me as someone who can't accept generosity. My parents are upset and feel caught in the middle. Friends who witnessed the argument are divided. Some say I had every right to confront her, while others think I overreacted and embarrassed her at my own wedding. Mark has been supportive, saying that I handled it as calmly as possible given the circumstances, but he also thinks I should probably reach out to Lily in the coming weeks to try to reconcile. I've considered writing a letter to explain my perspective without it turning into another confrontation, but I'm not sure if that's the right approach. I keep replaying the wedding day in my mind, and while I feel proud of the celebration we created, I can't shake the feeling that Lily's gift cast a shadow over everything. I also feel guilty for the argument itself. I don't want family drama lingering, but I also don't want to pretend the gift was fine when it genuinely made me uncomfortable. I'm torn between standing by my feelings and trying to make peace for the sake of family harmony. I honestly don't know if I handled it correctly or if I came across as selfish or ungrateful. So Reddit, AITA for confronting my sister about her wedding gift, or should I have just quietly thanked her and moved on? Character count, 6,641 if you want. I can also craft a second version of similar length, but with an even more dramatic twist that would make it extremely viral in Reddit terms. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. So this is going to be a long one, and I want to start by saying that I love my sister. We've been close for most of our lives. I, 28F, have a sister, Lisa, 31F, and we grew up in a pretty tight-knit family. Our parents were always very involved in our lives, and family gatherings were always a big deal. When Lisa started dating Matt about 3 years ago, I had my reservations about him, but I tried to keep an open mind. From the beginning, Matt seemed nice in small doses, but there were red flags that I didn't feel comfortable ignoring. He had a tendency to make snide comments disguised as jokes, and he often dismissed Lisa's opinions in front of other people. I chalked it up to him being awkward and thought things might improve over time. But as their relationship progressed, the behavior didn't just continue, it escalated. A few examples. He once loudly criticized Lisa's choice of career during a dinner with our parents, calling it a waste of her potential. He constantly tries to correct the way she speaks or the way she spends money, framing it as advice. At my birthday dinner last year, he spent the entire evening talking over everyone and interrupting conversations, and when I confronted him politely, he shrugged and said I was being too sensitive. Despite this, Lisa insisted that he's changed, and she loves him. I wanted to be supportive, so I stayed in the background during their early engagements. However, things took a turn about 6 months ago when they got engaged. They invited me to help plan the wedding, and I agreed. That's when I started noticing even more controlling tendencies. He demanded every wedding decision align with his personal tastes, disregarding Lisa's preferences. When she expressed a desire for a simple ceremony, he insisted on an extravagant affair that reflects their status. He also micromanages who is invited and has made comments like, "I don't want anyone there who isn't useful for networking or entertainment purposes," which I found extremely rude and dismissive toward family. The breaking point happened last month. Lisa was trying on dresses, and Matt came with us. He loudly criticized every single dress she picked, saying things like, "This is too plain. Don't you want people to notice you? And that color makes you look washed out." Lisa started to look upset, and I told him to stop being so harsh. He turned to me and said, "You're just jealous because you don't get to wear a dress like this." At that moment, I realized his behavior was not just annoying, it was controlling and toxic. I decided I needed to set boundaries. I told Lisa I could no longer participate in any wedding planning, nor could I attend the wedding if Matt was going to be involved in a way that made me uncomfortable. Lisa was furious. She said I was overreacting, that I was hurting her day, and that it was just a few uncomfortable moments. What's the big deal? I tried explaining that it's not about a few moments. It's about years of consistent behavior that I cannot condone. I also expressed that my concern was for her emotional well-being, not just my discomfort. She said she didn't want to hear it, accused me of trying to sabotage her happiness, and eventually cut off all communication for a week. When our parents found out I wasn't going to the wedding, they called me and pleaded, saying I was being dramatic and that I should put aside my differences for family unity. I tried explaining my perspective, but they argued that Matt has made efforts to be polite around the family lately, and that I was taking past behavior too seriously. At this point, I haven't spoken to Lisa in a few weeks. I feel awful about it, but I also feel like attending the wedding would be endorsing behavior I find manipulative and harmful. I've tried to express that I can love her and still disapprove of him, but apparently that's unacceptable. So here's where I stand. I'm prepared to miss one of the biggest family events of my life because I don't want to be around someone whose behavior I find toxic and potentially abusive. I understand this will probably strain my relationship with my sister and our parents, but I also feel like I have to stick to my principles. Am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? Character count, 6,534 if you want. I can draft another version that leans even more into tension and family drama, similar to some of the most viral AITA stories, to give it that next-level Reddit addicting red quality. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law's kid join our family vacation after she got angry at me? I, 34M, have been married to my wife, Laura, 32F, for 7 years. We have 2 kids, ages 5 and 7. Every summer, my family rents a cabin in the mountains for a week. It's kind of a tradition. My parents, siblings, and their families usually go. This year, we booked the cabin months in advance, and it was specifically chosen to accommodate our family size, which is 12 people including adults and kids. Now, here's where things get tricky. My brother, Dan, 36M, has a daughter, Sophie, who's 10. She's a sweet kid, but she has a lot of energy, and honestly, she's a little of a handful at times. Dan and his wife, Nina, 35F, have had some struggles with her behavior, especially on trips. A few years ago, Sophie broke a lamp in our cabin and drew all over the walls with permanent markers. We had to repaint and replace some furniture, so we've always been a bit cautious about inviting her. Earlier this month, Nina texted me saying that Sophie really wants to go on the family trip this year, and that it would be mean to exclude her. I told her honestly that the cabin is booked for our family size, and there's no extra room. I added that last time we had a problem with Sophie causing chaos in the cabin, and we don't want to repeat, especially because our younger kids aren't always great at setting boundaries. Nina got upset. She sent a long text about how I was picking favorites and punishing Sophie for things that happened years ago, and how this will be remembered forever. She then said she might have to stay home with Sophie if we didn't make room. I tried to reason with her, saying that it's not personal, it's logistical. The cabin literally only has so many beds, and there's no extra space for another child. Plus, I mentioned that I didn't want any accidents with furniture or walls, and that it would be safer for everyone to stick to our normal group. That's when things escalated. Nina called me and raised her voice, accusing me of being selfish and unkind. She said that our kids get to go on trips all the time, and it's unfair that Sophie gets left out. I reminded her that Sophie has been on trips with us before, but she also tends to be rough with other people's things and that her parents never really enforced rules with her. I said that this is why we have to draw a line. Laura tried to mediate and said maybe we could come up with a compromise, like having Sophie join for 1 or 2 days if Dan and Nina came too. Nina refused, saying she doesn't want to pay for a partial trip and that splitting it up isn't fair. Now my parents and siblings are divided. Some of them think I'm being a jerk for excluding a kid. Others understand that I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to keep the trip manageable and safe. I feel like we're constantly being painted as the bad family members for sticking to our rules. I know it sounds harsh, but the cabin is already packed. We don't have spare beds or extra space. Our kids need supervision, and honestly, Sophie's behavior in the past has made everyone anxious about potential problems. I don't want to risk a repeat scenario where we have to repaint or replace furniture or have fights during vacation. Nina has now been posting on social media about how cruel it is that Sophie isn't allowed on the trip, and a few family members have started messaging Laura and me privately, asking us to just let her come. I feel torn because I love my niece, but I also feel strongly that this is our family vacation and we have the right to keep it structured for our own kids' safety and comfort. The tension has made planning the trip stressful. Laura is frustrated because she doesn't want to fight, and I feel like my hands are tied. I've offered solutions like visiting Dan and Nina at their home another weekend or planning a day trip together. But Nina is insisting on the full family trip experience. I guess my main question is, am I really the asshole here for not inviting my niece, given the cabin limitations and past incidents? I want to be fair to everyone, but I also don't want to compromise the vacation experience for our family. The comments in the family chat are divided, and I'm starting to feel like I'm the villain. My wife is backing me, but I also hate that Sophie feels left out, even if I know this is the safest choice for everyone. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law's kid join our family vacation. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she tried to guilt-trip me over my financial situation. This has been an ongoing issue for years, but it recently came to a head, and I need to know if I'm in the wrong here. I, 32F, live in a mid-sized city and have been slowly climbing the corporate ladder. It's going fine, but I'm by no means wealthy. My younger sister, Lisa, 28F, just got engaged to her fiancé, Tom, 30M, who comes from a very well-off family. Lisa immediately started talking about having a dream wedding, which I knew meant something extravagant and expensive. When she first told me, I congratulated her and said I would be happy to help in whatever way I could. I figured maybe helping with decorations or even just being a supportive presence during the planning process. She then called me a week later and said, I think you should host the wedding. Like at your place. You have the perfect backyard for it. My heart sank. I live in a modest townhouse with a tiny yard that fits maybe 20 people comfortably, and Lisa was already talking about 150 guests. I tried to explain that my place literally could not accommodate that many people. I suggested that maybe we could have a smaller, intimate rehearsal dinner or brunch at my place instead, and she blew up at me. She said, "You always make everything about money. We're family. Can't you just help your sister out?" I told her that it wasn't about money, but about space, logistics, and honestly, safety. My landlord wouldn't allow more than 50 people, and parking would be a nightmare. She accused me of holding her back from having her dream wedding and stormed off the call. After a few days of no contact, she started texting me about how she knows I resent her and how I'm the only person who could save her wedding from being mediocre. At this point, I had to set a boundary and replied, I cannot host your wedding. I want you to have a beautiful day, but my home is not suitable. You will need to find another venue. She didn't take it well. She told our parents, and they called me asking why I was being so difficult when it's just one day. I explained everything calmly, but they seemed to side with her, saying that I was overreacting and that families should make sacrifices for each other. The next day, Lisa called me while I was at work and screamed at me for 20 minutes about how selfish I am. She said she's going to have to downgrade her entire wedding if I don't host it, and implied that she would never forgive me if I didn't change my mind. I reminded her that I'm happy to help in other ways, like helping pick a venue, send invitations, or coordinate vendors, but that the location cannot be my house. She hung up on me. I then received a message from Tom, Lisa's fiancé, who politely asked if I would reconsider because it would mean so much to Lisa and me. I replied that my house physically could not accommodate the number of people they're inviting and that it's not fair to ask me to take on something that is unmanageable. He responded with a long text about how family support is priceless and that I would regret not helping my sister on her big day. I didn't reply because at this point I was frustrated and emotionally drained. A week later, Lisa and Tom booked a venue without telling me and sent me an invite. I honestly felt relief. But when I mentioned that I'm glad they found a place, Lisa accused me of not caring about her happiness and throwing a fit for no reason. Our parents are still upset with me, and one of my friends who was invited told me that I should have just swallowed it and hosted the wedding to keep peace. I feel like I set a reasonable boundary, but now I'm questioning if I'm actually being selfish. I've helped my sister in many ways in the past, moved her twice, lent her money when she needed it, helped with her college applications, and even stayed up all night planning birthday parties. But this feels different because it's a huge logistical and financial burden that I literally cannot handle without serious consequences for me. I keep replaying the conversations and trying to figure out if there was a better way I could have approached it, but any compromise seems impossible because my house is just too small. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she tried to guilt me into it? AITA for ruining my sister's wedding because I wouldn't lie to my parents? So, this happened over the summer, and I still feel tense about it, partly because my family has basically stopped talking to me. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Mia, 26F, and she's always been the golden child in our family. Our parents, especially my mom, have this habit of exaggerating or outright lying about situations if it makes the family look better to outsiders. I've always been the opposite. I call things as they are, which has caused tension, but also means I generally don't get caught in messy situations. Mia got engaged last year to a guy named Jordan. We all liked him, and things seemed great until my parents decided they wanted the wedding to be perfect, by which they meant Instagram perfect and with every detail curated to make them look good socially. Mia went along with some of their ideas, but I think she also started to feel trapped because her mom was extremely controlling about guest lists, decor, and even her dress. I tried to support Mia as best as I could, offering small tips and moral support, because I knew she secretly hated some of her mother's demands. The problem started with the wedding invitations. Our parents insisted that a lot of extended family be invited, including people Mia barely knows, and they wanted me to personally reach out and tell these relatives that the wedding was going to be a small, intimate affair with only 50 people. This was not true. The guest list was over 200. I refused. I told them I was not going to lie to anyone. My parents got visibly upset but waved it off and said, "It's just a little white lie, no big deal." I told them again I wasn't comfortable. Fast forward to the wedding week. The night before the rehearsal, my mom called me in tears because apparently she'd had a panic attack thinking about her coworkers' opinions if they found out the wedding wasn't as exclusive as she wanted. She begged me to call them anyway, and my dad chimed in, saying I was being dramatic and ruining Mia's big day. I snapped and said that if they wanted lies told, they could do it themselves. I was not going to compromise my integrity for appearances. My mom screamed at me, saying I was selfish and trying to sabotage everything, and hung up. The day of the rehearsal, things were mostly calm, but my sister pulled me aside. She told me she was stressed and begged me to just go along with the family version when people asked about the wedding size or other things. I told her I couldn't. I explained that I wouldn't lie to anyone, and if people asked, I would tell them the truth. She looked frustrated and said, "Fine, but don't ruin this for everyone else." I thought that was unfair, but I stayed silent because I didn't want to argue in front of guests. During the ceremony, everything went smoothly until the reception. Some distant cousins and old family friends who weren't supposed to be there started asking about how intimate the wedding was supposed to be. I, refusing to lie, told them it was not really a small wedding, that there were over 200 guests. At first, I thought it was harmless, but then my mom stormed over, visibly angry, and whispered for me to stop telling people the truth. I told her I wasn't lying. By then, several family friends had overheard, and my mom started crying and yelling, accusing me of embarrassing her in front of everyone. My dad joined in, calling me a brat and saying I had to apologize to fix things. I refused. Mia didn't confront me immediately, but after the wedding, she sent me a message saying she was disappointed I didn't support her by following the plan. She said she understood why I did it, but felt that I had made her mother's behavior worse, and that I made the wedding about me. My parents have basically not spoken to me since, except to send passive-aggressive messages about how a few small lies could have made everyone happier. Extended family members have also commented to me privately that they were surprised about how tense my parents seemed, and one aunt even said they didn't appreciate hearing some of the truth about the guest list situation. I still feel that I did the right thing. Lying to make people look good doesn't sit well with me, but everyone in my family thinks I'm a villain here. Even my sister, who generally has a good relationship with me, seems annoyed and distant now. I feel guilty in the sense that the wedding was tense, but I don't regret sticking to my principles. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to lie about the wedding to our family and guests, even though it upset my parents and sister. Character count, 6,453 if you want. I can make an even longer version close to 7,000 characters with extra drama at the wedding and more family interactions. It would make it feel even more like the highly upvoted AITA stories. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after a huge fight over their dog. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, and we've always been close, but our relationship has gotten increasingly tense over the past few years, mostly due to her relationship choices. She recently got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark, 27M, who I will admit I didn't like much at first. He seemed controlling and dismissive of my opinions when we met, and I felt he was trying to take over decisions that normally involved Emily's family. I tried to keep my judgment to myself, hoping I'd warm up to him over time. About 2 weeks ago, Emily and Mark had a big argument. In the heat of the moment, they decided to take a break. Emily came to me that evening, clearly upset, and mentioned that she didn't want to be alone at home while Mark cooled off. She asked if she could stay with me for a couple of days. I agreed without hesitation. She arrived late that night, and at first, everything was fine. We stayed up talking, binge-watched some old shows we used to love, and she seemed to genuinely appreciate having a safe space. The following morning, she confessed that during their argument, Mark had thrown their dog, a small rescue named Toby, into his car and left. Emily was devastated. She begged me if we could help get Toby back, because she couldn't bear the thought of him being left alone in Mark's car or apartment. I agreed, and we tried calling Mark, but he didn't answer. We eventually tracked him to his apartment complex, and Emily insisted on confronting him. I was hesitant, but went with her for moral support. When we arrived, Mark came outside and immediately started yelling at both of us. He accused Emily of being overdramatic and me of meddling in his relationship. Emily demanded Toby back, saying the dog belonged to both of them, but Mark insisted it was his. Things escalated quickly, and I ended up arguing with him more than Emily did. He tried to intimidate me physically by standing very close and blocking my exit. I finally snapped and shoved him hard enough to make him stumble back. Emily yelled at me to calm down, but by then, Mark was furious and threatening to call the police. We managed to leave with Toby, and Emily was in tears the entire way home. I tried to console her, and we decided she would stay at my place until she figured out what to do next. That evening, she mentioned that Mark had been calling and texting her repeatedly, asking to come over and talk things out, and even insinuating that I should let him stay too. I was uncomfortable with the idea, especially after the physical altercation, and said absolutely not. Emily got defensive, saying I was being unreasonable and that if I really cared about her, I'd let him come over so they could reconcile. I refused, explaining that I didn't feel safe having him in my home, and also that he had been aggressive and disrespectful to both of us. That's when things really went downhill. Emily called our parents and told them I was trying to keep her from making amends with her fiancé. She accused me of being controlling and said I was overreacting. My parents, who have always been more sympathetic to Emily, started pressuring me to let him stay, saying that he was family now and I needed to put my feelings aside. I tried explaining the situation calmly, but they seemed to dismiss my concerns. I ended up having a long phone argument with my mom, during which she accused me of being selfish and suggested that maybe I was jealous of Emily's relationship. That hurt because I genuinely wasn't. I just didn't trust Mark after what had happened. Emily herself started acting cold toward me. She would get upset when I refused to give her updates on Mark's calls or texts and said I was trying to isolate her. I tried to stay neutral, telling her she could contact him if she wanted, but she couldn't come over. She accused me of making her choose between me and him, and at one point she said, maybe I just shouldn't come back here at all if you're going to act like this. That stung a lot, because I'd never turned her away before in any situation, even when we had minor disagreements. A week later, Mark finally contacted Emily to say he wanted to drop the engagement entirely and didn't want to see her again. Emily came to me crying, and I comforted her as best as I could. She later admitted she realized that Mark had been manipulative and controlling, and she thanked me for not letting him stay at my house. She said she felt safer and more in control of her life because of my decision. But she also mentioned that our relationship had taken a hit, and she wasn't sure if she'd be able to fully forgive me for not letting him in. Even now, our parents are upset with me. They argue that I should have played peacemaker and let Mark in so the family could reconcile. I told them that peacemaking shouldn't involve putting myself or Emily at risk, and that safety has to come first. Emily and I are talking less than before, and I feel like the family tension is going to linger for a while. I honestly feel like I did the right thing by setting boundaries and prioritizing safety, but I can't shake the feeling that maybe I overreacted. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after the fight and the incident with the dog. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she asked me to just go along with it, even though it made me extremely uncomfortable. I, 29F, have always had a tense relationship with my older sister, Mia, 34F. Growing up, she was extremely controlling and manipulative, often pitting our parents against each other to get what she wanted. I've spent most of my adult life trying to establish boundaries, and while we've improved slightly over the years, it's still a fragile relationship. Mia got engaged about a year ago to a man named Darren, 36M, who I met once at a family dinner. My initial impression was neutral. He was polite, friendly, and seemed nice enough. I wasn't particularly close to him, but I tried to be supportive because it's my sister, after all. Fast forward to a few months ago, Mia asked me to help with her wedding planning. I said yes, figuring it would be a limited commitment. However, it quickly became apparent that she wanted me to do more than just help. She wanted me to essentially execute her ideas and take full responsibility for logistics she didn't want to handle herself. I was okay with helping in small ways, like addressing invitations or researching florists, but I have a full-time job and other responsibilities. The real issue began when she told me about her wedding vision. She wanted a very traditional wedding, but also insisted that Darren's family would need to feel like they had no say in any aspect. She specifically asked me to act as a buffer during any family interactions. She said things like, just smile and nod, don't rock the boat, and don't say anything that might upset Darren's mom. Just go along with it. It's easier for everyone. I was confused because she was essentially asking me to lie, pretend everything was perfect, and completely ignore any inappropriate or rude behavior from anyone, including her own family. I have never been someone who can fake reactions for long periods of time, and I hate suppressing my feelings just to keep someone else happy. A couple weeks later, she called me and said, "There's something I need you to agree to before the wedding. Darren has some family traditions, and some of them are a little unusual. We need you to just go along with it, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Just smile and don't question anything." I know it's weird, but it's important to him. I asked what she meant, and she avoided giving me specifics, saying, "I don't want to ruin the surprise, but trust me, you'll understand at the wedding. Just go along with it." At this point, I started feeling extremely anxious. I realized I had no idea what I was being asked to do, but it sounded like I might be forced to participate in something that I fundamentally disagreed with or found morally questionable. I tried to negotiate. "Can you at least tell me what this involves? I want to be supportive, but I can't commit to something I don't know about." She became defensive and said, "You always have to make everything about your comfort. This is about making Darren happy. Can't you just put yourself aside for one day?" I told her I couldn't agree without knowing what involved. She became upset and said, "Fine, I guess you don't love me enough to be part of my wedding. Maybe you shouldn't come at all." I was stunned. I didn't want to make her feel rejected, but I also felt that agreeing blindly was asking too much. Over the next month, she continued to pressure me. She would text things like, "I don't get why you're making this hard. Everyone else would just go along with it. Why can't you?" And, "I thought you were my sister. I thought you'd be there for me no matter what." I tried explaining that I would attend if she could at least tell me what she was asking me to go along with, but she refused to clarify. Eventually, I made the decision to decline the invitation. I sent her a long message explaining that I loved her and wanted to support her, but I could not participate in something I didn't understand or could not consent to. I told her that attending under pressure would make me resentful and anxious, and that I didn't want that to affect her wedding day. I offered to help in smaller, specific ways that didn't involve blindly going along with unknown activities. The response I got was harsh. She accused me of being selfish, manipulative, and even called me toxic for not trusting her judgment. She said that Darren and his family would be deeply disappointed that I wasn't there, and that our parents were furious as well. She also said that by not attending, I was destroying her wedding experience. My parents called me a few days later, trying to mediate. They said they understood my concerns, but also pointed out that Mia was clearly hurt and I was making her day more stressful. I tried to explain that my absence was not meant to hurt her, but was a matter of personal boundaries, but they seemed unconvinced. At this point, I feel incredibly torn. On one hand, I don't want to be estranged from my sister, and I don't want to hurt her on one of the biggest days of her life. On the other hand, I feel that attending under the conditions she set, without knowing what I was agreeing to, would be compromising my values and mental health. I've already offered other ways to support her, but she refuses to accept them. Some friends say I'm right to protect my boundaries, while others say I should suck it up for one day. I genuinely don't know if I'm overreacting. I haven't spoken to Mia since declining, but the rest of my family seems to be leaning heavily toward thinking I'm in the wrong. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she asked me to blindly just go along with it, even though I knew it would make me extremely uncomfortable. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her choice of bridesmaids. So this is going to be a bit long, but I need to get it all out. I, 28F, have always been close with my sister, Emily, 32F. We grew up together, shared everything, and for the most part, have a pretty good relationship. Over the last few years, though, things have gotten complicated. Emily got engaged last year to her boyfriend, Mark, who I'll admit I never warmed up to. I didn't dislike him exactly, but he always came across as controlling, and I felt like Emily became more of a version of herself that I didn't know. That's just context, though. The real issue is with her bridal party. So Emily called me about 6 months ago to tell me I was going to be a bridesmaid, which of course I said yes to immediately. I was genuinely excited, started thinking about dresses, and even offered to help with planning. Things are going great until about 2 months ago when she sent out a group chat with her bridal party that included me, another sister-in-law I'm friendly with but don't know super well, and 2 friends from work. Here's the kicker. The other friend of Emily's, who she insisted had to be a bridesmaid, is someone I've had a falling out with in the past. For context, this friend, Sarah, and I used to be close in college. We drifted apart after she spread a pretty hurtful rumor about me during finals week my senior year. I confronted her, we tried to mend things, but honestly, I never fully trusted her again. Emily knew all of this because we had multiple talks over the years, and she even apologized for bringing Sarah around in the past. Anyway, now Emily's insisting that Sarah must be a bridesmaid because it wouldn't feel right otherwise. I tried talking to Emily privately about it. I said, I really don't want to be in the same bridal party as Sarah. I don't feel comfortable, and I don't want any tension at your wedding. Emily got upset, accused me of holding grudges, and said that it was her day, and I needed to get over it. I explained that I wasn't trying to make it about me. I just didn't want to ruin her wedding by being in a group with someone I can't stand, but she basically said that if I had a problem with Sarah, that was my issue, not hers. After that, I tried to compromise. I offered to attend the wedding as a guest, but not as a bridesmaid. I even offered to help with decorations, planning, and whatever else she needed behind the scenes. Emily said no. She insisted that if I wasn't willing to be a bridesmaid with Sarah, then I shouldn't come at all. She said it was disrespectful and selfish. My parents are in the middle. They both think Emily has a point, but also feel like it's harsh to cut me out entirely over one person. My younger brother thinks I'm being too rigid and should just fake it for a day. My friends mostly agree with me. They say that a wedding is supposed to be a happy day, and I have the right not to be in a situation where I feel emotionally unsafe. I should add that Sarah has no idea I feel this way, and I've never said anything negative about her to anyone other than Emily. I really don't want drama at the wedding, and honestly, I think I could keep my distance during the event, but the thought of standing beside her during the ceremony and taking photos makes me anxious. I've struggled with anxiety before, so I know this would be genuinely uncomfortable for me. Now, the situation has escalated. Emily sent a group text to our family and some mutual friends saying I refused to support her on the most important day of her life and that I chose my grudge over family. Some friends have been asking me what happened, and I've just been trying to stay out of it because I don't want to add fuel to the fire. But my parents are getting frustrated because the tension is now family-wide, and I can feel it affecting our dynamic. I genuinely feel like I'm being reasonable. I'm not trying to sabotage Emily's wedding or ruin her day. I want to support her. I'm just not willing to put myself in a situation where I feel unsafe and uncomfortable with someone who has previously hurt me. I don't think it's about holding a grudge. I think it's about self-preservation and emotional boundaries. Emily says I'm overreacting and selfish. My parents are stuck, and I feel torn because I don't want to completely cut her out. But at the same time, I also don't want to force myself into a role that would make me miserable. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to be a bridesmaid because I can't stand Sarah. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move in with me after he lost his job. I, 32F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I live in a small but nice apartment in the city where I work as a software engineer. I pay my bills on time, I have my routines, and I like to keep my space organized. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, is a very different person. She's charming, creative, and spontaneous, but also extremely unreliable when it comes to adult responsibilities like money, jobs, or living arrangements. For the record, Emily and I have had a complicated relationship, but I generally try to be supportive of her because she's my sister. About 6 months ago, Emily started dating a guy named Mark, 30M. From the start, I was a little uneasy. Mark seemed nice on the surface. He's friendly, outgoing, and has a good sense of humor. But there were red flags I couldn't ignore. He didn't have a stable job, frequently borrowed money from Emily, and she often mentioned that he had financial troubles and didn't really manage his life well. Emily, however, was head over heels and insisted I should just give him a chance. I did my best to be polite and welcoming whenever he came over, but I never felt completely comfortable with him. Fast forward to last month, Emily called me in a panic. Mark had lost his job, again, and apparently had nowhere to stay. I should clarify that Mark has a history of bouncing from one friend's couch to another whenever things go wrong, and Emily's parents have a no freeloaders rule. So now, according to her, I was the only person he could turn to. She asked me if Mark could move in with me for a few weeks until he got back on his feet. I was immediately hesitant. I value my personal space, my routines, and my mental health. I also know that Mark doesn't have the best track record for responsibility. I told Emily I wasn't sure. She got emotional and said that it wasn't fair because she can't help him otherwise and that she thought I owed her this. She implied that since I am more financially stable, I should just step in. I explained that I understand the situation is difficult, but letting someone move in who has a pattern of being irresponsible into my home is a huge risk for me financially and emotionally. I offered to help him look for jobs or even give him some money for rent elsewhere, but I could not have him living with me. Emily didn't take it well. She accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. She kept insisting that it would just be temporary and that I didn't understand the stress she was under trying to save him. I reiterated that my apartment is my sanctuary, and I have my own work and life to manage, and taking someone in who has consistently shown poor responsibility could have serious consequences for me. The situation escalated when Mark showed up at my apartment without telling me. I was working from home that day, and when I answered the door, there he was with a suitcase, looking slightly nervous but smiling. He said Emily told him I would let him stay. I told him firmly that I never agreed to this, and he couldn't stay. He tried to reason with me, saying he just needs a few nights until he finds a place. I held my ground, explaining again that I have boundaries and that I cannot accommodate him. Eventually, he left, but not before muttering that I was family, so I should help. After that, Emily stopped talking to me for a few days. Then she texted me accusing me of turning my back on family and said that I'm going to regret this because Mark doesn't have anywhere else to go. She also told our parents, who sided with her to an extent, though they eventually admitted that while it's nice to help family, I'm not obligated to put my life on hold for someone who has repeatedly demonstrated irresponsibility. The tension in our relationship is now at an all-time high. Emily keeps bringing it up in conversations, and Mark has made vague comments whenever I see him about people who only think about themselves. I feel bad because I don't want my sister to resent me, but I also feel that letting him move in would be a huge mistake. I've offered other types of help, like giving him resources, helping him draft resumes, or even a small financial loan, but Emily insists that nothing counts unless I let him physically live here. I'm starting to wonder if I'm actually in the wrong for setting this boundary, or if I should just bite the bullet to keep the peace with my sister. On one hand, I value my space and stability. On the other, I don't want to be seen as heartless. So Reddit. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move in with me after he lost his job. Character count, 6,435 if you want. I can make an even longer, fully polished version closer to 7,000 characters with more dialogue, tension, and backstory to really mirror top Reddit AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding after she publicly humiliated me. I, 29F, have always been the more reserved sibling, while my sister, Clara, 31F, is loud, dramatic, and has always thrived in the spotlight. Growing up, we had our typical sibling squabbles, but as adults, we were fairly close, or at least I thought we were. Our relationship has been complicated, but I always tried to support her, sometimes at the expense of my own comfort. Last year, Clara got engaged, and she immediately started talking about her dream wedding. She's always been very particular about details, and while I love her, I have learned the hard way that challenging her opinions is basically impossible. Her fiancé, Matt, 33M, seems like a nice guy, though quiet and easygoing, which seems to balance Clara's intensity. Clara knew I recently bought a house on the outskirts of our city. It's a modest, cozy place, not particularly fancy, but it's mine and I love it. One weekend, she came over unannounced with a huge binder full of wedding plans. She was telling me how perfect my backyard would be for her wedding, how my house's aesthetic was exactly what she wanted for the intimate rustic chic vibe she was going for. I told her that I wasn't sure if it was feasible. My backyard isn't very big, parking is limited, and I was planning on having some renovations over the summer. Clara, however, didn't take no for an answer. She started going through every reason she could think of why my house would be ideal, from the lighting for photos to how my kitchen layout was perfect for catering prep. I finally said, "Look, Clara, I'm happy you like my house, but I don't think it's a good idea for your wedding. I'm not comfortable hosting a big event here, and I have my own plans and projects coming up." That's when things escalated. She literally started crying in my living room, telling me that I was selfish and that if I really loved her, I'd want to help make her dream day perfect. I tried to stay calm and explained again that it wasn't about not loving her. I just didn't want the stress or responsibility of hosting a wedding at my place. A week later, she invited my parents and extended family to a small brunch, where she launched into a story about how I refused to let her use my house for her wedding. She made it sound like I was cruel, selfish, and unsupportive. Several family members started giving me sideways looks, and I felt completely blindsided. My mom called me later and said, "Clara was hurt. Maybe you could reconsider? It's just one day." I reminded her that it wasn't feasible and that I wasn't comfortable with it. Since then, Clara has been passive-aggressive. She sends me articles about how to be a supportive sibling and post pictures of other people's backyard weddings with captions like, "Imagine if your sibling let you do this." I've tried to keep communication minimal, and when I do talk to her, I stick to neutral topics. But I can feel our relationship changing. My parents are subtly pressuring me. My cousins have asked me if I'll come around, and even Matt has hinted that Clara might not forgive me if I don't. I understand that weddings are emotional, and I get that she's disappointed, but I feel like this has become more about control than anything else. I have a right to my space, my home, and my peace of mind. I've offered to help in other ways, helping plan, assisting with DIY decorations, helping find a venue, but apparently that's not enough. My friends are split. Some say I'm being a good sister for setting boundaries. Others say I should just let her have one day in my house to avoid family drama. Honestly, the more I resist, the more she doubles down on guilt tripping, and I'm exhausted. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding after she publicly shamed me and tried to manipulate my family. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay in my house after he insulted my career and then demanded I host his family. I, 29F, live in a moderately sized apartment in a big city. I work as a graphic designer for a tech company, and while I enjoy my work, it's demanding and often stressful. My younger sister, Emma, 26F, recently moved back to the city after a rough year traveling abroad. Emma and I have always been close, but our relationship is a little complicated because she tends to be very impulsive and relies on me more than I sometimes think is healthy. A few months ago, Emma started dating someone, Jason, 28M. I hadn't met him yet when she first mentioned him. She said he was really ambitious and different from anyone I dated before. I'll admit, I didn't have strong feelings about it since I tend to stay out of her romantic life, but I did agree to meet him when she said he wanted to come over for dinner. The first dinner was tense. Jason seemed polite at first, but halfway through the meal, he started questioning my career. He asked how I could work in graphic design with so many people freelancing online and making six figures, and implied that my job was cute but not serious. I tried to laugh it off, but it honestly made me uncomfortable. Emma didn't seem to notice the shift, or maybe she just ignored it. I ended the dinner earlier than usual and didn't make plans to see him again immediately. A few weeks later, Emma asked if Jason could come over again, and this time she said he wanted to meet some of my friends too. I told her I wasn't sure. I didn't want to host someone who had already been dismissive of me. Emma pushed back, saying he was changing and that I should give him another chance. Reluctantly, I agreed. This dinner was worse. Jason spent the evening making little comments about my apartment being small for someone in tech. I don't work in tech, I work in design, but whatever. My cooking being decent but not impressive, and then openly critiquing my friends' careers, saying they weren't really doing anything meaningful. I could feel my blood pressure rising. By the end of the night, I quietly told Emma I didn't want him in my home again. She looked annoyed, but we left it at that. The real conflict started last week. Emma called me in a panic and said Jason's family was visiting from out of town. She asked if they could all stay at my apartment for a few nights because her place was too small. I immediately said no. I explained that my apartment is barely enough space for me and my cat, and hosting 6 extra people wasn't feasible. Emma reacted poorly. She said I was being selfish and accused me of not supporting her relationship. Then she said something that really hurt. Apparently, Jason had told her that he didn't think I was a serious adult because I don't own a house, and that he thought I should make room for his family if I value my sister. I couldn't believe it. I told Emma I couldn't have someone in my home who had insulted me repeatedly, and that she could find another solution. She called me dramatic and unsisterly, and we haven't spoken properly since. Our parents are involved now. They think I'm being unreasonable because he's her boyfriend and family is important, and that I should learn to compromise. I understand family is important, but I also feel like I'm being asked to put myself in a situation where I'm actively disrespected. I'm not opposed to having him in my life at all, just not in my home after how he treated me. Some mutual friends have weighed in, and there's a mix of opinions. A few say I'm right to set boundaries and that hosting someone who insulted you is not required. Others say that refusing could damage my relationship with my sister and that I'm being too rigid. I feel torn because I do love my sister, but I also feel disrespected and unsafe having him in my space. AITA for refusing to let Jason or his family stay in my apartment, even though it upset my sister and parents. Character count, 6,431 if you want. I can write an even longer version that hits closer to 7,000 characters with more drama, backstory, and emotional tension to make it even more Reddit popular. Do you want me to do that? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.